Hi Becky, here's problems number 7 and 9. On problem 7, you have to look at the denominators, which are x minus x plus 3, x, and 4x. You have to select your common denominator correctly. You're going to need a 4, that's a monomial term. You're going to need an x, and you only need one x. You don't need an x squared. You just need an x, and then you need an x plus 3. That's going to be your least common denominator. And we can, because it's an equation, we can multiply both sides by whatever we want. So why don't we multiply both sides by this least common multiple or least common denominator? Okay. All right, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to multiply 4x times x plus 3 on the left side of the equation, and I'm going to move it on the right side of the equation. On the left side of the equation, hopefully it's pretty easy to note that x plus 3 is going to be your common factor. Okay, so what you're left with is 4x times 1, which is going to yield me a 4x. Okay, so it's going to yield me this part of my work. Okay, the 4x times x plus 3 on this side has to be distributed to both of those terms, because you're taking a difference. So when I take 4x times x plus 3 and I distribute it to the 2x, the common factor that they both have in the numerator and the denominator is the x. So then I'm left with 2 times 4 times x plus 3. When I distribute the 4x times x plus 3 to the second term of 3 over 4x, the common factor that's in the numerator and the denominator is 4x. And what I'm left with is negative 3 times x plus 3. Okay, so the next step, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to leave my 4x here. Then 2 times 4 is 8. I just left my x minus 3, x plus 3. Then I took the negative 3 and I distributed it to the x plus 3, and that's what yielded negative 3x minus 9. On my next step, I have 4x equals 8x plus 24. I use the distributive property there, taking the 8 times the x and the 8 times the 3. On the next step, I combine like terms. So I was able to combine the 8x and the negative 3x to yield 5x. And I was able to combine 24 and negative 9 to get negative 15. And then for my last step, I moved the 15 over, and then I moved the 4x to the side, and that yields my final answer of x equals negative 15. On problem 9, 9's kind of a bugger. It's a bugger because your least common denominator that you're going to multiply both sides with is not kind. Okay? You're going to be left with x plus, or your least, let me go back. When you look at the denominators, notice that I have a binomial term of x minus 1, a binomial term of x minus 2, and a binomial term of x plus 1. None of those are the same, so you're going to end up with a common denominator of x minus 1 times x minus 2 times x plus 1. Okay, so like I did on the last problem, we can multiply, because it's an equation, you can multiply both sides by anything you want. So I'm going to choose to multiply both sides by that least common denominator. And on the left, hopefully it's pretty obvious that the common factor is x minus 1. So what you're left with, and I'll reveal here in just a minute, is you are left with, in the numerator, you're left with x minus 2 times x plus 1 plus 6. So that's what you're left with. You're left with this right here. On the right-hand side, I'm going to have to distribute that to both this term and to this term. Okay, when I do that, okay, when I multiply it times this term, the common factor is x minus 2. And so what I'm left with is 4 times x minus 1 times x plus 1. When I distribute the x minus 1, x minus 2 to the second term, the common factors that cancel are the x plus 1s. So I'm left with 2 times x minus 1 times x minus 2, which is denoted here. So what I have to do in the next term is I FOILed. Okay. X squared minus x minus 2 is FOILing this. Oh, sorry. It's FOILing the x minus 2 times the x plus 1. When I FOIL x minus 1 times x plus 1, I'm left with the x squared minus 1. And when I FOIL the x minus 1 times x minus 2, I'm left with the x squared minus 3x plus 2. Okay, the next step I distributed this x to all those terms. I distributed the 4 to the x squared and the minus 1. I distributed the 2 to those 3 terms. In the next step, I combined like terms on the right. I was able to combine the 4x squared with the 2x squared to yield 6x squared. I was able to combine nothing with the negative 6x. I just recopied that. And then a minus 4 and a plus 4. They end up canceling. Okay, next step. I noticed that 6x squared and 6x squared are the same on both sides. In the next step, I realized that there's a negative 6x and a negative 6x on both sides. So what you're left with is negative 12 equals 0, and that's false. Therefore, there are not any x values that are going to satisfy this equation, and that's why it's no solution. Hope this helps. Have a good night.